There. This is Gary Davey, a therapist in Salem, Oregon, and just talking today about marriage counseling and how to deal with conflict and what I see primarily in my office uh, that tends to come up regularly. Now, every couple is different and has different needs and different problems, but there are some common um, things that people bring to marriage counseling as the reasons why they're there. Also, if you're a therapist, especially a new therapist that's interested in counseling couples or marriages, you might find some of these tips valuable. So, anyways, I wanted to leave it open for uh, people to make some comments, and if you had questions about what you're going through as a couple at this time, or if you're a therapist and want to just engage in some dialogue about what I think works best for people, just I'd be happy to answer those questions as well. Um, so I'd say overall, what I tend to get as the most common type of problem in my office is couples wanting to learn how to communicate better, resolve conflicts, and things of that nature. That doesn't mean that they don't have other problems as well, like affairs is a common um, thing that happens to couples that bring them into counseling. Uh, Also, financial difficulties sometimes, but in many regards, it's not specifically those things, but maybe just um, what one spouse might feel as immature behavior by their partner, whether it's addictions or um, not working, enough to contribute to the family is a big complaint I've heard recently. So um, that reminds me, if you're talking about recent uh, issues or trends, I've been doing this. I think my first official patient, even as an intern, would be probably in 1989. So so that's a long time to maybe think of if there's been changes, culturally. I started practice, I think, in California, then moved to the Idaho Washington border area, or excuse me, Idaho and Oregon border area, and now I'm in like I said, Salem, Oregon, so Western Oregon. Um, and I think really I haven't seen a lot of my couples change in some of their main desires. You think things that would have maybe uh, been quite different back then, but I don't see the same questions that I always have. Um, like I said, how to manage conflict and things like that. So uh, if you again want to jump in for a chat, you can just do that, and I'll try to respond to everything I see. So um, I think I had somebody come into the group there. So if I get a question from them, I'll let you guys know what it is. Excuse me. So again, the main thing I want to talk about today would be communication strategies, particularly. Um, Really, I mean, if you think about managing conflict, it's really. I know there's some things that are going to be unique to marriages versus other kind of conflicts with between institutions, between groups of people, or even countries negotiating things. Conflicts are usually managed in the same way, in my opinion. Um, and that is, now I know there's different things at stake in a marriage than those other examples, but I think uh, primarily people need to learn to ask questions as to how the other person got there, why, what makes them think these things. And many times we don't ask those questions. And so we end up just sharing conclusions together. So, for example, um, one partner says something, the other one disagrees or is offended, which is also a form of disagreement. And so the other one basically is saying, you're wrong, or I don't like the way you did that. And the other one says, no, I didn't do it that way. No, I'm not wrong. And then the other one, yes, you are. And it goes back and forth. That sounds silly, but really that is the hallmark of conflicts that don't get resolved is two people sharing conclusions. In other words, you're wrong. No, I'm not. So we have to have a different way of resolving conflicts, which is asking how the person got there. Honey, you're wrong. Okay, I think I get it. What makes you think that? What leads you to that conclusion? And once people open that door, there can be a dialogue that where you can actually resolve conflicts together. You know, um, you can actually accomplish something instead of just fighting, right? Now, I have seen couples. I was just reminded of it that this morning is seen couples for sometimes many years. It's not super common for couples. Usually, individuals will see me longer, but I've had some couples see me for a long time, and just not have really an interest in getting better or um, solving problems. But they're kind of invested in conflict. Um, Most people aren't that way. I think most of my patients are interested. They want to get out of here as quickly as possible as well, right? They want to move on in their lives too. Um, so that's something that's important. Is that you got to have a really strong desire to get better and to make the changes that we talked about in session, right? Or at least to try them and attempt them, And I usually ask people, what have you done this last week to get better? And some people say nothing. And others, try harder with those type of things. Um, so that sounds good. I'm just seeing if there's any comments so far. If you are watching my channel, please subscribe and type a question in there. Um, and we'll try to answer everything I get. So uh, I just appreciate you guys out there at this time, um, and I think especially for couples counseling, the internet can be a great place to get a lot of help. I've posted a lot of videos on my channel that really go over most of the things we talk about in session. So you can get a lot of help as long as you sit down together and can have an open mind and try some new things. But um, might not always as good as coming in for a session in the sense where you don't have that connection um, with somebody when you're just watching a video, but at least it can get you started. Uh, so let's see if I can answer some questions here. Um, all right. Alright. Good start. Looking at the questions, I don't know if you're just watching and haven't posted anything. But again, we're talking about communication. Um, and in a lot of ways, when you communicate with people, I like to think of it, and I do have a video on this particular topic, but um, is I like to think of that kind of a window like a drive up at McDonald's, and that window slides back and forth. And that window, it's either closed or open at the drive up, right? Is you can't communicate with the person on the other side if the window's closed. And our behavior as customers in that case um, will either shut the window, right, if we're rude to the person, or keep the window open as we share what we want to eat and give them the money and and are polite with the person and we have kind of a brief dialogue together. So um, I think uh, that window is a good model. I just call it the window model of communication, and just pretend that's kind of between you and your spouse. That they or you say will disrupt your communication. So being rude, loud, certainly yelling. Why did you do that? Any questions that tends to shut that window is try to be avoided. Um, you want to ask questions. Tell me more about that. Honey, is there anything I could do? And you want to keep that window open as long as possible. And the other thing I share with couples is if you do say something inappropriate or they do that closes the window, give give each other permission to apologize and to try to reconnect, which is really role playing that almost. It's like saying to each other, "Hey, I am so sorry I came across rude. Can I try that again? Let me say it differently." And then have grace enough to give the person a chance, a second chance. If we're bitter about it, we can really shut down any progress we are trying to make. So I hope that helps a little bit. Um, but uh, okay, I just want to know there's a place where we can pause the stream here.